Welcome to Exiger Nexus, where our experts use the lenses of their government and industry backgrounds to help you see the biggest headlines at the intersection of economic and national security in a new way. I use this framing today to launch into a countdown to transparency and action. We've got 60 days, according to the FCC, to get China Telecom out of the US. So Matt Hayden, you come from the Department of Homeland Security, and I wanted you to kick us off today. Why is the government making this big announcement? Why ban a company? And why is this a big deal?
So normally you wouldn't have the government weighing in like this unless it truly was a dire threat. The telecom network that we have in the United States is the backbone for everything we do. Our phones, our emails, all of our lives are becoming digital and being compounded by COVID in this manner. What China Telecom was doing was literally not complying with national security mitigations that were put forward. The FCC grants a license for anybody to operate on the network, and if they think there's some sensitivities, they give you some rules of the road to operate on. China Telecom just was ignoring them. And at the same time, they were operating in manners that caught the attention of DOJ. DOJ submitted a whole host of unclassified and classified evidence to the FCC last year in which they wanted to revoke this license the FCC had offered. It took then a 10-month investigation from the FCC to confirm each and every one of those findings. And the FCC presented it this month in just that straightforward fashion that yes, China Telecom was a national security threat and that they had taken a private sector company off of the US telecom network and made their decision. Now, this does give them a runway to do so that their customers can find new opportunities to connect, but it is a very significant action by the FCC.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing here, Matt, is just the gravity of that kind of decision. The point that you made, which is that they confirmed the allegations, and the allegations are espionage, capability to sabotage, capability to influence and surveil United States telecommunications networks. Those allegations being affirmed, I mean, that sounds like a big deal to me. I mean, is this something the government does, as a routine or as a an act of enforcement, or is this pretty unique?
It is unique. We see actions against Huawei and ZTE and others through different licensing regimes, but from the FCC to take this type of an arrangement, it lines up with some of the challenges they've had with undersea cables and the team telecom efforts, but to directly say you cannot connect to our telecom back end is unique and a first step that we have not seen them make in the past.
Wow. I mean, and so, in terms of how our clients are going to have to orient themselves when it comes to this kind of action, I mean, when I'm speaking with clients, when I'm talking with clients, I'm saying to them, first, understand your connections to China Telecom, understand where you may have equipment from China Telecom, understand where you may have China Telecom connections that have been utilized to create a fabric back to their Chinese sites, right? They need to be able to grab transparency into a supply chain that's been relatively opaque. And so telecoms have to take this really seriously, because when you remove authority to operate, when you remove that license, it says China Telecom is a clear and present danger in our telecommunications environment. And they do a lot more than just provide direct cellular service or direct, tower service. They're embedded and integrated into the technology of tomorrow, which is, sort of computer, satellite, even iPhone-led 5G bandwidth and communication styles. And so, when you bring up the point that they reaffirmed this, these allegations of threat, that then makes it so that telecoms have to take a real interest in their supply chain to understand where China Telecom Nexus may exist and potentially look to offset that risk in some way. The other thing I would mention, and we've seen this elsewhere, the tact that first the DoD took with 889 and the restrictions that they put where in terms of the providers you can buy information and communication technology componentry from. They banned Huawei, they banned ZTE, right? Those kinds of actions from a general consumer perspective, from a general industry telecom perspective, can kind of get boxed in. They can get quarantined into this thought process of, well, that's national security. One of the things that I see this action really saying to all of us is every telecom has to think about the aspects of their program that can relate to national security. And Carrie, I'd love your thoughts on this, on whether or not this is a DoD issue or whether or not this is an industry issue that was first flagged by DoD.
Okay, so yeah, I think you're right, Brandon. This is, DoD has been sounding this alarm, I think, the longest for many years, but it's really pretty consistent sounding of an alarm. You saw the last administration. I won't go on a TikTok rant, Cody. You've heard my rant before, but I'll spare you that lecture again. But everyone's been I think trying to sound this alarm, consistently and get America to wake up to this threat and the fact that in a time of conflict or even in a gray zone, every single device you rely on for communication is susceptible as a weapon or a target by our adversaries. So you see the government here once again, and I think Matt's right. This is a little bit unique, but there is a consistent trend here. Where the government is saying, look, given the degree of control that of China Telecom by the Chinese government, akin to the TikTok argument, that entity is very highly subject and exploitable by the Chinese government, who at any given point, right, will force them to comply with requests and requirements to access, store, disrupt, misroute U.S. communications. So the United States here, government saying we will not enable the compromise of our U.S. telecommunications systems by the Chinese government. Full stop, right? And I am encouraged by this. This is a very clear, consistent, bipartisan trend. Not many things you can say these days that are, but the last administration, give them credit, right? It's actually they're the ones that moved this issue, I think, meaningfully. To the top of the political and diplomatic, agenda in 2019, when they declared the national emergency to ban technology from foreign adversaries, subjected Huawei to very, very strict export controls, and then there was another one that immediately followed. I believe it was maybe China Mobile. And then, of course, like you mentioned, Brandon, we saw NDAA 889 and 1237, now 1260H legislation follow. But the hard part is, and Matt can speak to this too, is actually getting the follow through, getting the implementing regulations in place to affect these bans, and then enabling the process of identifying where these companies are in our infrastructure, where are they operating? As you mentioned, Brandon, all too often it is deep and deeply obfuscated, right? Their nexus and their infiltration. And that's really where we come in, right? For our clients, whether it's the federal government or the defense industrial base clients that we support, or on the commercial side, we use our technology that conducts the targeted analysis of open source commerce data, really, and this is one example, to help identify the continuing flow of potentially blacklisted Chinese goods coming into the US. And, the other thing I'll just mention, and I know we're short on time here, but you can't just look one layer deep, right? 889 mentions 5 firms and their related subsidiaries, but the government has not specifically listed any of those subsidiaries. In our work, we've identified nearly 600 subsidiaries under those 5 889 firms and identified over 850 ultimate and beneficial owners. So you can't just look one layer deep. You really have to look at the entire ecosystem around that entity, or essentially, you might as well not have done it in the first place. It sends a signal, but it in effect doesn't actually mitigate that risk.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right, Carrie. And, the one thing I would encourage our telecommunications customers to do, I would encourage, people that are getting out the vote to do is to prioritize this topic, because the lens that Carrie brings to this conversation is a lens of conflict. And just think, if you could disrupt and sabotage every cell phone that has connection to or association to a China Telecom built cell tower, or a China Telecom connected device, or in the 5G world, something that's processing data through multiple telecommunications providers, but that China Telecom has access to. Imagine all of a sudden your phone stops working, as what Carrie mentioned last week, that hypersonic missile launches, right?
Yeah.
This is a reality, and it's a reality that we don't want to fearmonger, but we want to take really seriously, and we want to make sure everyday consumers are protected from.
Thank you all. This is really insightful. I think we could go on maybe a part two. One point I want to just clear up. It's a global issue, right? It's not just the US.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the UK has banded together with us on Huawei and their 5G deployment. Australia has been a fervent advocate for ensuring fair global trade, but also prioritizing national security with us. So it's a global problem, and everyone in the telecom industry needs to be able to essentially evidence deep insight into their supply chain and find these risks.
Great. Well, we'll put up some resources. Thank you all for your time. I don't think we'll be meeting here again on TikTok, but I'll see you on a Zoom sometime soon, and we'll continue this topic and others that are related. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.